To the regularly scheduled meeting at Council for Tuesday, July 8th, 2025. I call this regular meeting of Council to order, acknowledging it's taking place on the traditional territory of the Stiminis First Nations. Welcome to the members of the public who attend in person at the Ladysmith Senior Centre or online, and those who tune in to watch later on YouTube. We'll go to agenda approval. Ms. Anderson, is there any change to the agenda this evening?
Try that. There we go. I can hear myself echoing. So sorry, Madam Mayor. Yes, there is a change. 7.1 is splitting the recommendation into two separate items, changing one of the words in there from approve to defeat, and adding another recommendation should council opt to change the recommendation 7.1.2.
Thank you. With that, can I have a motion to approve the agenda for this regular meeting of Council for July 8th? So I have Councillor Gurley with the motion and Councillor Jacobson seconding the motion. All those in favor? None opposed. Motion carries. Rise and report from the closed session. We have items from the closed meeting of Council held June 17th, 2025, CE 2025-045, that Council appoint Julia Papp, Anthony Price, John Scott, Tanya Sewells, Keona Wiley, Stephen Crusill, and Robert Redcop to the Community Planning Advisory Committee for 2-year terms ending June 30th, 2027. CE 2025-046, that Council appoint Bruce Mason, Jacqueline Hard, Jane Nettleton, and Dave Mack to the Parks, Recreation, and Culture Advisory Committee for 2-year terms ending June 30th, 2027, and CE 2025-047, that Council rise and report on Resolution CE 2045 and CE 2025-46 once the applicants have been notified. Yeah. Pardon? Yeah. Go ahead.
Sorry, Madam. There is also an item from the executive session this morning or this afternoon. Would you like me to read the recommendation? Yeah. Is that Council appoint Haley Young as the additional corporate officer, deputy corporate officer.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to minutes. Minutes of the public hearing and regular council held June, when was that? June 17th. And recommendation that council approve the minutes of the regular meeting of council. And Councillor Stevens and Councillor Patterson, all in favor? None opposed, motion carried. We have our committee minutes, and I'm going to go to Councillor Bertanen.
Thanks, Madam Chair. We'll start with the first recommendation, 7.1. The recommendation is that the council receive the minutes of the Parks, Recreation, and Culture Advisory Committee meeting held June 18th, 2025. Moved by Councillor Mackay, seconded by Councillor Jacobson. Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor? None opposed. Thank you. So now moving on to the second recommendation,
Can I just ask for clarification why it's switched, the chair switched?
Because it's committee minutes, and Jeff was at the committee.
I didn't realize we actually switched the chair during that.
Madam Mayor, the council can choose to appoint the council representative who was at that meeting to discuss the minutes, but usually it is still the chair who is directing which are the vote is happening.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. You want me to what? Yeah, I don't know. I was just asked them. I said, sure. Okay, so the recommendations in the main agenda is now being changed to the late agenda item. So the recommendation is that council amend item 7.1 of the agenda to split the recommendations in item 7.1 into two separate items, 7.11 and 7.12. Amend 7.12 by replacing the word approve with defeat, and add a third recommendation, 7.13, if necessary, as follows. The recommendation is that council defeat the following recommendation from the Parks, Recreation and Culture Advisory Committee. One, that the proposal for an emergency access through Brown Drive Park be referred back to the committee with the following additional information. A, further information on the viability of the alternative emergency access route over adjacent lands. B, a presentation from the engineering and fire departments on preferred standards for the proposed access through Brown Drive Park. And two, that any access developed through the Brown Drive Park have a limited one-lane footprint with minimal turnarounds and similar features intended primarily for vehicle use. Is that moved by Councillor Patterson? And seconded by Councillor Jacobson. Any discussion? Councillor Stevens?
Thank you. So we would proceed, how we proceed is that at a future, I'm just looking ahead a bit. So we would defeat these recommendations, and then at a future meeting, possibly the next meeting, we would get details that would fill us in to allow further motion crafting, sort of. Is that, or through the staff, I guess. I'm looking at the newly minted
through the chair. Yes, staff have received new information that council hasn't been privy to. The Parks and Recreation Commission don't meet until September, so staff would like to provide council with further information and the process forward as they see it. We're hoping for the next July meeting, but if not, it would be the August meeting.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Just, I guess through the staff, but we have a committee of people that we've appointed to guide us in parks, recreation, and culture aspects. If there's new information, why would we not wait till they meet and let them peruse it for their input instead of just bringing it back to the next council meeting?
Through the chair. There's technical information there that actually professionals should be making guidance, and council should be directing staff or making those decisions. Those decisions shouldn't be made at a committee level. If council decides at the next meeting that they would like to further it back to Parks Recreation Commission, they can do so at that time.
Are we voting for this motion to defeat, or voting to defeat this motion to defeat?
Through the chair. If you vote in favor of the motion, it is to defeat it going, it is to defeat the motion that was put forward by the Parks and Recreation Commission. Does that make sense? Thank you.
I guess I could put my, oh, did you want to go back on the? Okay, I guess I'll put myself on the speakers list because I was at this meeting. I was actually, before this was changed, I was actually going to suggest that we separate these anyways. I don't want to talk for the committee, but the gist of what the committee wanted was number two. That was kind of, that was their main takeaway. Then there was some information put that maybe the other route through Mosaic or the other way wasn't off the table, which at that time we had thought they were, but it had come back that maybe it wasn't off the table. So kind of convoluted and made the mudder, Chris, you were there at the meeting, kind of made the waters really muddy about what, and then that's how we ended up with this, getting them to come back and do all these presentations, and it kind of got off board a bit. But then when it came back, they realized that chances are we might not agree to this, to send it back to do presentations. So that's why they put number two in, was so that we were aware that the gist of what the committee wanted was the one lane only footprint. In fact, they were kind of surprised me how interested they were in it. It seems to work quite well into what their plan was, the one lane. So for that, I just wanted to pass that on. Councilor McCann.
Thank you. And I appreciate that. I think the key here is the fact that there seems to be a lot of new information, and it's technical and accurate information that I believe we need to understand and have access to before we make any actual decisions on this road. And I think even the width of the road has to be explained and verified for us before we can agree that we would have a single track or of the minimal size. So I think there's no point in having a road if it's not going to be able to do the job that it's meant to do, which is to create an emergency access. That has to be its foremost purpose. Not a walking path for people. It needs to be there for emergency access for people's for emergency vehicles and such. So I do think we need to defeat what was proposed in light of the new information, and that we need to receive that information in a form that is fully reliable from our staff and through discussion. So that's just my thought. Thank you.
Councilor Stevens.
Thank you. And your explanation, I think, allayed my. I hear Councillor Patterson saying that we don't want to just abandon the committee and its work, but I think the real service they did is they asked the right questions, and now we need to get that accurate information. So if we want to kick it back at the next meeting to them and leave it to September, we have that option. But I think they've done a real service by asking these key questions, because they're details that we all need to know. That and it's interesting though, you say it fit in with the plan that they've been working on, and that was my impression from last time. The width of the road is the debate. The location of this path is not really. Is that fair?
No, I think that's a fair assessment, and the accessibility now that this paved path would provide was very, very welcome by the committee as well. So no more questions. Then I will call the question. So just so we're clear, thank you for pointing that out, Councillor Gourlay. So if we vote in favor, we're voting to defeat it. Okay, perfect. So all those in favor? Any opposed? Oh, unopposed. Thank you. Do you want me to move on then? Okay, so because of that one passed, then there is now 7.13. So the staff recommendation, it says right there, to be considered only if 7.12 is approved as amended. The council directs staff to advise the owner of the Malone Road development to provide documentation to staff for council's consideration that all other options for the emergency access road over adjacent lands have been exhausted. Moved by Councillor Jacobson, second by Councillor Stevens. Any discussion? Councillor McCann.
I mean, I think ideally, this is what we would like to see. We would like to not have a road running through the middle of our park. And I do think it is critical that we find out what are those other options, and is there absolutely no way that the road can actually go that route. I really support that we do this. Thank you.
Councillor Jacobson.
Thanks, through staff. We've been talking about, having this available for the next meeting or the August meeting. Have we talked with the developer to see if they're going to be able to have that information available that quickly?
Through the chair, it would be dependent on which direction council would be going tonight, and then after this meeting, whatever the motions come out of it, then staff will be in touch.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
If nobody else, can I'll put myself on the speakers list. I'm not 100% against this. I've got some concerns though. This has been going on, I think the developer told us 20 months now. my concern isn't getting more information. I think that's prudent. My concern is how much time are we going to add? And when I see words like all other options have been exhausted, I just over adjacent lands. I guess I get a little bit concerned on how much time this is going to add on to it. So I like that staff is saying that we're going to. Originally, it was going to come. The new information was going to come back in the July or August meeting, but we don't know about this information, right?
That would be correct. We do have information to be brought back. It's just whether staff have the capacity to get the report together for the July meeting or the August meeting. If there has to be, further people brought into the equation to have answers and have conversations regarding this motion, that may be a September meeting, but if it was to go back to the Parks and Recreation Commission, that was going to be September anyways. So we're hopeful that we can have the information prior to that, and that's the intent of staff. But if there's other players in the game, then we can't determine what their schedule is. If that helps answer the question, it's not to put another roadblock in. It's staff took what we felt was the essence that the Parks and Recreation Commission were asking for, and trying to do that work and get it in front of council quicker than it may have gotten to the Parks and Recreation Commission. So hopefully this will help move things along rather than deter them.
I ask myself for a follow-up. Just a quick follow-up then. Is there a reason that we're doing this recommendation tonight and then not after we get that information? I'm just wondering, will we inadvertently add to their timeline by doing this, or not? That's my biggest concern, is us adding to the timeline on this.
Through the chair, then there wouldn't, if we didn't, and it doesn't have to be this recommendation, it can be whatever recommendation council wants staff to do, but with no direction, then there wouldn't be any further information brought back than what the proponent has.
Councillor Stevens.
Yeah, it was at least once, and I think twice at CPAC that the proponent's agent stated the reason, and at least once in council correspondence, but it's anecdotal. And so my hope with this is that they can just take anecdote and quickly add documentation, and it's not that onerous, because it has been 20 months, but they've been maintaining this for 20 months, so they must have something hopefully to back it up, and then it would be pretty quick, would be my hope. But I hear you, you don't want to add time if we don't need to.
Any more discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Unopposed? Carries. Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to reports. We have an adjustment to water billing account 2024 Q 2025 Q1. The recommendation that council provide a bill adjustment due to a water leak for account number 000103220-000 in the amount of $6,308.31. Councillor Bertanen and Councillor Patterson. Any discussion? Councillor Patterson?
Thank you. My only concern, because it's actually such a large amount and the time frame is double what we normally allow, would we be setting a precedent for others that can, for whatever reason? So, but if we grant this request, does that set a precedent for others if we get into a very large water billing again? That would be for staff.
Okay.
Madam Mayor, through council, through the mayor, each item would come to council in the future based on the story that is provided to us. So I don't think the precedent will be set in. It's the bylaw dictates what each one of the criteria are for making the approval for my level at the $3,000 mark or the 45-day mark. Then anything that's outside of that would come to council for a decision. Doesn't matter. I would never then change it and say this one is just like that one, so I'm not going to take it to council. I wouldn't have that authority, so that's why it would still come to council in a future staff report, unless council chooses to change the bylaw.
And Councillor Gurley, did you want to speak?
Sure.
Okay.
Thank you. I'm not willing to go along with the complete waiver of this entire amount, and the reason is there's a massive discrepancy between, I guess, the work that was done late. The contractor's invoice that was provided states that it was done 77 days after the owner was notified. That's the limit is 45 days in order to qualify for this exemption. I'd be willing to support a partial adjustment. Alternative number 2, I would even cut it in half, say $3,000. But I'm not going to vote in favor of waiving the whole amount.
Councillor Stevens was next.
Thank you. I have maybe the same sorts of questions as Councillor Gourlay. I think what hit me is of the 25 adjustments in up to date, our largest has been $4,600, and this is $2,300 beyond that. And so I'm just wondering. I know I thought in my mind, like, the size of the water line makes a difference. This time of year, it's in January, February, tough to get people out and a lousy time to do the work and everything. But do we have any sort of timeline or sort of bullet points to fill in why the delay? And I had the nice side of me said, this happens, and it happens regularly, and we forgive these. The inquiry side of me says, should we prorate it? So before I went to a 50% formula or something like that, I would kind of like to know the details of why the delay and the difference in invoice.
Councillor McKay.
Thank you. And I was going along the same lines in my thinking. Is there a way, and this is through to staff, is there a way that we can get a better understanding of what actually occurred? Is it a case of the billing was delayed? The work got done, but the billing was delayed. I think it's important that we understand that well. Do we have an understanding of that? Or is there a way that we can ask the questions?
To staff.
Through the chair, the information that's been provided into the report was that the owner stated the date that it was repaired. The invoice received from the company who did do the work is a different date. We have tried to get a confirmation from the company unsuccessfully, and the owner has continued to say that the date that was repaired was the date that it was done. That's the information we have.
Not helpful. Thank you.
And Councillor Patterson.
Thank you. We're trying to be nice and sweet and warm and fuzzy. Prorating it does nothing for me. It's we have a bylaw. That's how it stated, and if we want to forgive it, we forgive it. If we want to live by the bylaw, we live by the bylaw. Pussyfooting around it doesn't work for me. So we either forgive it or we make the owner pay for it.
Councillor Jacobson.
Through to staff. So after a leak has been, I'm just wondering on like our side of the process here, like after a leak has been detected, when is the next time staff goes out and does a meter reading? Like, do we wait until the owner says, okay, I've fixed the leak, or do we just keep checking back to confirm that it's fixed? Through to staff.
Thank you. Through the chair, the process is when we do like most people are notified of a leak when the meter readers are going out, and if they see the meter spinning or large consumption as it pops up, we leave a doorknob hanger thing or a notice to say we suspect there's a leak. So that's usually your first indication. Sometimes the bills are high, and then the meter reading doesn't tweak that much, and it's the bill that's so much higher is what tweaks the property owner that there is a leak. So then the notice is out there. That's kind of when the clock starts. So either the bill's delivered or the notice is given. Then once we get all the information back to do the calculations, we do verify that the leak has been repaired. Like our crews do go out and just confirm that this meter's not spinning.
Right.
But it's not like we do another meter reading per se, because we don't adjust inside of a cycle. But it would just be if it flags inside like a higher consumption or a higher out of the norm.
So in a case like this where it's quite skewed, like it's quite a significant variance, would we like did we have any meter readings between when the work was like the cutoff for when the work was supposed to be completed, like around that date?
We do have a meter reading that looks like it would still have been in that time period, so there'll be no way to bring it back to what it was on the date that the property owner said it was fixed. We just know it was a large consumption, so you could have a large consumption that first few days, and then it goes down to virtually nothing for the remainder of the period.
Gotcha.
And your meter reading would still be high.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Britannic.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Sorry if I asked you to repeat yourself, but did I hear you say when Councillor McKay asked a question, you're having troubles getting a hold of the repair guy as well? Did I hear that right?
We have reached out to the repair person, but they had provided the invoice to the property owner. It's not, they're not our agent. It was their agent.
Oh,
So
okay.
they're basically saying that defer to the property.
Okay.
Anybody else? The only thing that I'm looking at here is that we have previously waived this time requirement for similar applications. So if it's I've had copious amounts of work done where a segment of the job was done on one date, and then other aspects of the job were continuing on and done at later dates. So the final billing may have come out one date, but it may not be indicative of the date that particular repair was done. It's hard to know unless we did actually go back to the actual homeowner and ask them to go back over it. But as Councillor Patterson said, I think we either agree to follow our guidelines and give them the credit or not, but it seems to me that it's not unreasonable. Councillor McKay?
I feel like, and I think you mentioned this. This is through to Director Anderson. At the time that the repair is supposedly done, did you say that we send someone out to check and just make sure that the meter's not spinning at high speed? Because that's usually the indication of consumption, and it's pretty easy to tell the difference between a leak and normal behavior. Do we have, I'm unclear whether that happened in this case, and if it did happen in this case, what was the date of it in relation to the deadline? And I'm wondering if we need to ensure that we always have a policy where we make sure that someone goes out before the deadline to make sure that the meter is behaving in a manner that indicates that there's no longer a leak. And that would eliminate this question and allow us to, with greater ease, follow the policy as written, as opposed to being uncomfortable with wondering whether or not this has been handled responsibly, which is kind of what we're doing right now. So that's through to staff, just asking for clarification on checking the meter once work has been completed.
Through to staff. Through the chair. This all happened, so there are two dates that we're talking about, all happened in the same quarter. So we would go out and verify the meter reading after the homeowner has received all their bills for the work that's done, because that's required to be submitted with it, and fill out the paperwork. So that can actually be a lag time of a few months. So no, when they say that they did fix it on June 10th or can't remember the date, that we will not go and read the meter right after that, because we actually don't have notification that they fix it on that date. It's when they then submit their leak adjustment form with all their bills.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Councillor Gurley?
I don't think we need to keep trying to imagine scenarios where this person did it right. They didn't do it right.
Well, we
and
don't
if
know that.
no, we know we have the invoice from the company saying the date they did it, 77 days after they were notified. We have the invoice. So if the invoice is wrong, the owner would have had it corrected. We don't need to think of scenarios where, oh,
Well, the question then is, does it say on the invoice that the repair was done on that date, or? Okay. All right. Any further discussion?
Can I just, because we've got deep enough, we don't have a motion on the table.
Yes, we do.
We do?
Yes,
Okay.
we do.
All right. Maybe I would suggest that we, we're in a situation where the person was 6 days early or 31 days late. And so could we defeat the motion and defer and ask staff to take one more kick at contacting the contractor to confirm the date? Because with just looking at those numbers, they were either really good and made the deadline with time to spare, or they weren't. And if we could just access that piece of information, I'd feel a lot more comfortable making the decision. I have no problem denying if the paperwork says that, but I have a bit of a problem denying even a portion if they were in fact 6 days early. That's, I think, the dilemma for me. For me. So, is it possible to defeat the motion on the table and then a motion to defer pending staff trying again to confirm the date that the work that was done with the contractor? Would be my comment at this point.
Councillor Patterson?
Thank you, Mayor. So what we're asking staff to do after they prepared a report and went and contacted the owner, contacted the contractor and stuff, we're asking staff to do, waste more time to come back with probably the same piece of paper that we have in front of us. We have a bylaw. Do we believe that the work was done on such and such a date, or do we believe the work was done 77 days later? And that's the question in my mind. Why are we asking staff to waste their time after they took the time to prepare this report and give it to us? So it's black and white in my opinion.
Councillor Gurley?
yeah, my comment is slightly similar. It's not up to staff to ensure that residents are, it's not up to staff to build the case for residents that they followed a policy. It's up to residents to follow the policy and have the documentation. That wasn't done in this case.
Okay. Any further discussion? Councillor Stevens?
Thank you. So, we have documentation that says it was completed on the 10th. I'm only asking because, as the mayor said, I've had situations where, it's net 30 or net 6, and some people they do a lot of business and they don't send out an invoice right away. And then I've had people who invoice me before they've driven out of my driveway. So, if we have the documentation that in fact says the work was completed on that date, I'm more comfortable. That was only it's strictly comfort here. I don't want to saddle someone with $6,300 in bill because of we didn't have all their paperwork just completely in order.
Councillor Mackay?
Just to clarify, I don't think we would ever saddle them with the full amount because we're willing to give everybody the 3,000 grace, an adjustment up to 3,000 without even coming to council. So I think at most we would remove $3,000 from the total. Everyone who doesn't go over that amount gets that amount. It doesn't make sense to penalize them the full amount. That I would not be in favor of at all.
Councillor Patterson.
Okay, now that you mentioned that, is the question through to staff, is that what we would do? Forgive them the $3,000 forgiveness that we would give to somebody that stayed below?
Staff.
Through the chair, you'd still have to hit all the marks that council has provided us the authority for me to adjust a bill up to $3,000 before it would be waived. So in that case, if it is outside of the 45 days, it would still come back to council.
Any further discussion? Okay. So I'll call the question. All those in favor? All opposed? Motion fails. Bylaws, official community plan and zoning. 9.1 zoning bylaw amendment to allow bed and breakfast use in signal.
Sorry, pardon me, point of order. Can we not still move an alternative on this matter? I'd like to move alternative number 2, that we provide a provide an adjustment to water billing account noted for the fourth quarter of 2024 and the first quarter of 2025 in the amount of $3,000.
On a point of order, Mayor, we've already voted and acted upon that, and we move forward.
Second motion.
We're on a new subject.
Madam Mayor, the council can introduce another motion because no direction was given at that one. At this point in time, nothing will be done with that adjustment. It will stay as a bill. If somebody wishes, if council wishes to continue on to make a further motion, that can be done.
Okay. Okay. Did you get that? Can you read that out?
That council provide an adjustment to water billing account number 0001003 0220-000 for the fourth quarter of 2024 and the first quarter of 2025 in the amount of $3,000.
Any discussion? Councillor Pretend.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Yeah, I'm actually quite shocked that we're here. The owner said they fixed it. We've forgiven people for missing the timeline before. So we're basically, this table is just not believing the resident with zero evidence. So yeah, I guess I wanted to give him at least $3,000, but boy, I'm really troubled by this. Yeah.
Councillor Mackay.
Is there a system whereby a citizen can appeal the decision and perhaps at that time have more documented evidence of the process that was gone through? Is that a possibility?
Through the chair, that would be very unusual. You could have made a different motion if you'd wanted staff to receive or send correspondence to the homeowner for other documentation. So you're making a decision, a council decision at this point on this matter.
Thank you.
Sorry, I lost my page here. Hang on. The only issue I have is that it seems a little bit unbalanced in that, again, I haven't been involved in this, but it did actually state in the report from staff that we've done this before for other people. So are we picking winners and losers now? That's just a comment I'd like to have on record. Any further comments? Councillor Jacobson.
Just as a comment, we don't set precedent with each decision. So it's not a matter of picking winners and losers. And in this case, it's not that we don't have any evidence. We have not substantial evidence. And I think everybody's commented that they're not necessarily comfortable with what we have or maybe what we don't have. And I think that's evidenced by just the conversation going around asking if maybe we have this, do they have that? Can they provide an alternative? Like, I don't know what that invoice looked like. Did it say it was paid on a certain date? Did it say, like Councillor Stevens said, I think all of us have had contractors send an invoice out late or with the wrong date on it by a couple days, whatever. I do think we have a motion on the table, though, at this point for giving the $3,000, which is fairly standard. So that's my comment.
Any further discussion? No. Call the question. All those in favor? All opposed? Motion carries. Now moving on to bylaws, official community plan and zoning. 9.1 zoning bylaw amendment to allow bed and breakfast use in single dwelling residential zones. The recommendation that council give first and second readings to Town of Ladysmith zoning bylaw 2014, number 1860, amendment bylaw 2025, number 2213. 2, direct staff to refer Town of Ladysmith zoning bylaw 2014, number 1860, amendment bylaw 2025, number 2213 to the Ministry of Transportation and Transit, following third reading and prior to adoption of the bylaw pursuant to Section 52 of the Transportation Act. And 3, direct staff to proceed with scheduling and notification of a public hearing for Town of Ladysmith zoning bylaw 2014, number 1860, amendment bylaw 2025, number 2213, pursuant to Section 464(1) of the Local Government Act. In a motion from Councillor Jacobson, seconded by Councillor Stevens. Any discussion? No? Councillor Patterson.
Thank you. I guess again, question through the staff. So to people that have suites and want to turn them into bed and breakfast, they can't have the cooking facilities. Is there an actual inspection by the town to see if they align with this, or is it just taken the word and they're permitted to have a B&B?
To staff.
Through the chair. Yeah, so each bed and breakfast business would have to apply for a business license. And through that process, Development Services receives a referral where we provide comments, and there's an opportunity for the building department to inspect the unit to ensure its conformity with the zoning bylaw and the code.
Councillor Jacobson? Okay. Any further discussion? Councillor Mackay?
I'll just speak in favor and indicate that I think opening it up to allow more bed and breakfast does solve some of the concerns that some people had with regards to, the changes that we made around the Airbnb platforms and such. It enables us perhaps to increase the number of bed and breakfasts that we would have in town. And I think that's a good thing overall. So thank you.
No further discussion. I'll call the question. All those in favor? None opposed. Motion carries. And the bylaw status sheet is included. We have any new business? Yes, the Royal Canadian Legion Centennial banners. The recommendation that Council authorize the installation of the Royal Canadian Legion Centennial banners from October to mid-November 2026 and directs town staff to complete both the installation and removal in support of Ladysmith Branch 171 We Remember project. Can I get a motion? Councillor Patterson, seconded by Councillor Virtanen. Any discussion? Councillor Stevens?
Thank you. I just had a question. I know they'll be proximate to the Legion, but what number of banners are we thinking about? Because I know there's some cost savings, isn't there, if you go over a certain number?
Through the chair, we've been informed that it's a program, so people would purchase a banner and then it would represent that loved one that that's being recognized. So it would depend on how many they would sell to how many they would put up.
And Councillor Mackay?
I had the same question, just curious as to the number of banners, whether they'll be up and down the whole street. It's interesting that that they're available for purchase by loved ones. I think that's great. I look forward to seeing it. Thank you.
Councillor Patterson?
Thank you. I think it's a fantastic program, and I hope they get every veteran on there. So this would be for the entirety of 2026?
October to mid-November 2026.
Where does it say that with new glasses on?
Second line.
That's not Darlene's letter. It's in that.
Oh,
Oh,
yes, sorry,
okay.
it's in the recommendation.
Okay, because there it says in 2026.
Okay. And Councillor Gurley?
What if we just waive our annual banner program and sponsor this from the allocated funds and then just do it for the whole summer? Is that an amendment anyone's into?
I'll second that.
No, I wasn't going to second. I was going to comment. Sorry.
Okay.
We could vote if you'd like to make it if Madame Mayor
Okay.
wishes that you make that a motion, then we can move on to vote on that item.
Okay. Did we want to just make the motion and then we can discuss it? So do we have a?
Through the chair, you would want to defeat the first motion, and then you could make another motion to defer it to staff to investigate. We're just not sure what the cost would be for that. That might be way outside of our budget. It isn't a program that we're necessarily taking on. This is something that the Legion wants to take on, so we don't want to just take over their program either. So we haven't even had that discussion never came up because this was brought to us by the Legion that this is something that they want to do for their veterans. And they were just asking for us to be able to provide the labor to put up and put down the banners.
So question to staff, if we did pass this recommendation as it's included, we could then come forward and make an amendment or make a new motion later that we support them further in some way?
Through the chair, yes. I mean, there's a couple of things that the Legion, if they wanted to, they could ask for a grant in aid through that program, or they could ask for a donation towards it from council, in which we would take that out of a grant in aid or the council public relations or something of that nature. And Director Barfoot, when he goes back to the Legion to have discussions with them, could put that in their minds if that's something that they would like to do.
And it could even work out that they could still realize enough support that they had enough banners actually to put up, and then we would still only have to provide the labor, and that could just take the place of our banner project for next year. Because I think we're looking at sort of two things right now, whether we just sort of step in and take it over and say, oh, we'll do your banners, or whether they just they just do their program and get their banners supported, and we just leave them up for the year as opposed to a shorter period of time in replacement of our other banner program. Sorry.
Did you want to speak to that?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
Through the chair, there's many factors that can determine what we can or can't do. One is the numbers or the volume of banners. Do they have 5? Do they have 100? Do they have 200? We don't know. So if they end up with 50 banners, then yes, we can put up 50 banners for the year, but then we're going to have to still supplement the empty infrastructure with our banner, the public art banners. The request that came forward was to display the banners that were purchased by the family members. So that's why we're here today. But if you want to direct staff to go back and have that conversation to see, I can then gather those additional details. When I did ask what the volume was, they don't know until the sales happen.
Okay. Councillor Gurley?
Yeah, and the reason I brought it up, I would suggest that we use that money that would otherwise be allocated for banners anyway, and via grant and aid or some other kind of assistance, funnel it to them to pay for them and then display them for the entire season. Because the graphic proposal looks great. Put the 100th anniversary thing on it. Would be really cool. But yeah, I guess that's kind of a cart horse thing. I would support the motion as is with the additional direction to have staff discuss with them best ways to support them for the full year.
Thank you. Yeah, through the chair, it's important to note that the public art banner program is sort of that bulk buy. It's one design. You're producing many banners of the same design. This is a unique one where every banner is unique. So I don't know or have the information on what that additional cost would be to print multiple unique banners.
Councillor Mackay?
I would suggest we go very cautiously here. This is an entirely different organization who own their program, and it's not just Vancouver Island, it'd still be national. And I think we are overstepping our bounds by assuming that we could have any influence on them. My guess is these banners bought by individual families will be, after the 2 months of displaying, which goes in around Remembrance Day, will be given back to the families. Well, they're not going to want them back if they've hung in the town of Ladysmith for a year. So I would, I mean, we could ask a question. I would proceed extremely carefully around stepping on toes, and even like, these are big programs, big programs that go on through the Legion, and they are national, and they'll be happening in every town. And I would suggest we, rather than trying to lead it, allow them to have their lead and follow their ask, which is to allow us to put them up and to pay for putting them up. Beautiful. It's great. I would not vote in favor of this request or this addition or this what do we call it?
I think
Amendment.
where
Thank
we
you, that's
stand
the
right
word.
now is
Thank you.
we're looking at just the original recommendation to be voted on right now, with the idea that we may look to staff to see if there is anything further to be done.
Thank you.
Okay, does that sound reasonable? Okay, any further discussion? Call the question. All those in favor? None opposed, motion carries. And that takes us on to question period. A maximum of 15 minutes is allotted for questions. Persons wishing to address council during question period must be town of Ladysmith residents, non-resident property owners, or operators of a business. Individuals please state their name and address for identification purposes, and questions put forth must be related to items on the agenda, be brief and to the point. They shall be addressed through the chair and answers given likewise. Debates with or by individual council members or staff are not allowed, and no commitments shall be made by the chair in replying to a question. Matters which may require action of council shall be referred to a future meeting of council. Are there any questions? Hello, just would you hit the red button, please?
Got it. I'm Lindsay Cote. I live at 841 Davidson Road. I back onto the Brown Drive Park area. So I'm obviously here to ask a question about Brown Drive Park. I'm curious of just a couple of things. I'm wondering who is requiring the secondary access road for the new development off Malone Road onto Hunter Way? What was my second question? Who's requiring it? And when was it decided that we needed this secondary road? I moved back to Ladysmith 4 years ago next week, and that development had already begun when we bought on Davidson Road, and there was no plans in the site for a secondary road through the field. So I'm just wondering who's requiring it, and when did it become aware that we needed it, and there was no other option other than Brown Drive Park.
Thank you. Through to staff.
Through the chair, this is going to be a really general answer because I don't have planning here. But basically, the development was for a certain amount of units, and then the provincial government brought in the small-scale multifamily units, so that enabled developers to have more density. And so once it gets to a certain unit count, by law, provincial law, you need to have a secondary emergency access to provide those emergency services to over a certain amount of units. So that would definitely kick in once the developer got to the unit count. And I'm not going to quote on what that unit count is, but if you want to be in contact with our development services department, they can go in a more detailed answer than I've provided this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions?
Thanks. Yeah, good evening. I'm Patrick Johnson. I live at 861 Davidson Road, and like Lindsay, my property backs onto Brown Drive Park, and I'm strongly opposed to the proposed emergency access route through the park. My main question is, why should the city be responsible for providing land for the access route through this beloved park when the developer should have included it on their own land at the time of the development application?
So noted. Is that actually a question, or are you just registering your opposition?
Well, both, but
Okay.
my question is, why should the city be responsible for providing that land through a public park?
So just
not on their land.
Yeah, the responsibility for putting it in would be on the developer, but the access through the park is being requested due to the limited accessibility to the area.
Through the chair, staff doesn't have any much further to ask. The town doesn't have to use the parkland for access to that. That is up to the developer to do that. If there's no other way to make a secondary access, then the developer would be limited to the amount of units that could be serviced by one access.
Sorry, just to clarify, did you say that it's up to the developer to decide whether they use the public park?
No, the developer has to be able to provide the access if they go over so many units, not the town.
Well then, as a follow-up, why can't the developer provide the access route on their own land?
This is something that this is what we referred
That's
back
what we're investigating
to the question.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Any further questions? No? Okay, I will call for adjournment. And Councillor Stevens, seconded by Councillor Mackay, sorry. And all those in favor? None opposed? Motion carries.